Everyone. Thank you very much, Maria. It's a pleasure to be here. As Maria was saying, my name is Kyle, and I work in the international office of the University of Ottawa. And I will be talking a little bit about the university in general, about our research facilities, and about kind of the research areas that we tend to focus on. And then at the end, I'll touch briefly on the different ways that students can come and do research, because it's not always necessary to do exactly one type of activity. So first, I will start off very briefly. I hope that all of you know where Canada is. Many of you probably know where Ottawa is, University of Ottawa. We are located right downtown in the city of Ottawa, and Ottawa is the capital city of Canada. Mistakenly, many people think it's Toronto or Vancouver. Nope, the capital is Ottawa, and that's where we're located. So it is a great central location to really build up connections. On the little map that you'll see on your screen, you'll see that Ottawa is near several other large North American cities. In Canada, we have Toronto and Montreal, very near, Quebec City as well. And then just to the south of us in the United States, we have Boston, New York, a lot of those cities in the northeastern United States. And as you probably know, research is a collaborative activity. No one stands alone and does everything by themselves. So Ottawa is a good location to be able to go to other cities, go to conferences easily and cheaply, and really share your knowledge and learn from people working in your field. Now, the University of Ottawa, we are divided more or less into 9 different faculties. This is more of an organizational structure than a significant distinction of what our research is. But you'll see our 9 faculties on the screen. And if you were to come do a program of study, say a full master's or a full PhD, you would be doing your program within one of these faculties, but your research may be spread around with different professors from different faculties. But these faculties on your screen there do give you a very general idea of some of the activities and programs of study and research that we have at the University of Ottawa. We do work very hard to make sure that students and researchers have the facilities necessary to succeed. On the screen, there are 4 of our more recent infrastructure investments. In the top left corner there, we have our Advanced Research Complex. This is where a lot of physics research, science research, materials research is being done. They work in very small scales and very precise measurements. And it is a place where we have Canada's only accelerator mass spectrometer. I must admit, I don't know very much about what that does, but it is an important material that instrument that allows students and professors to do research in physics and on material sciences. In the top right corner, you'll see our Faculty of Social Sciences. Our Faculty of Social Sciences is one of the largest and best funded in Canada. And since we are located right in the center of the capital city, if you are interested in researching in the social sciences, studying and researching at the University of Ottawa gives you a lot of really good connections to Canadian government agencies, but also international agencies, embassies, a lot of NGOs, organizations that have a global reach. And so it gives you a lot of good opportunities to conduct research in the social sciences. In the bottom left is our new Learning Center. This is more of a student space. It's not necessarily a research center, but it does have many different rooms. You could book out private little meeting rooms for you to work with collaborators on projects if you wanted. And then finally, in the bottom right corner is our STEM facility, and I will be speaking about it a little bit more in detail momentarily. But it's our newest building on campus, and it's a pretty great place for people who are interested in the sciences, technology, engineering, mathematics fields. It's STEM. So moving on, we do work very hard to go beyond just the campus. The University of Ottawa does partner with industry for just providing students with professional experiences, but also to work on research projects and research problems that are being faced outside of academia, that are being faced by industry, and these are practical problems that require practical solutions. One of these examples of our partnerships is more recently with Kanata North, not to be mistaken with Canada. This is Kanata North. The picture on your screen is not actually the University of Ottawa. It is a technology park that is to the west of the city of Ottawa. And it employs several skilled workers, about 21,000. There's about 500 companies that work in this park. And the University of Ottawa partners with them to address some of their practical research needs. And it is a great opportunity for students and researchers to get off of campus and find out what are some of the issues facing people out in the world. And then moving on, as I mentioned, our STEM complex. This is on our campus, and it is our newest building on campus. It is a multidisciplinary facility. So, of course, there are a few professor offices, but the idea is that these are not specific laboratories working on very specific issues all the time. They're large workspaces that can be adapted to address whatever research need happens to be at hand. So you'll see a list of a few different questions on your screen. These are some of the questions that people working in this facility are trying to address, whether that's they're building things, they're building prototypes out of different materials, or whether they're simply collaborating, looking at using IT to try and address some of these problems. This facility brings together people from a number of research areas to try and address some of these very large issues. One thing I will highlight about this is that there are workspaces. One thing that I find very interesting is that they have a lot of 3D printers in there, along with other workspaces, but students have the opportunity to go in there and use the 3D printers for free. You can go in and experiment with different prototypes, just see what you can create, whether that's officially part of your project, your research project and studies, or if it's simply a personal creative project you're working on. You have access to those facilities. Now, moving along more into the research itself that the University of Ottawa does, you'll see a few basic figures, data, statistics about the University of Ottawa. You will see at the very top there that our research funding is about 300 million Canadian dollars per year. This is the money that is going to fund laboratories, fund the machinery, the equipment that allows people to do research, but it also goes to supporting the researchers themselves. Research does not happen without people. We need professors as well as research students to make research conclusions, to find those results. And that funding goes, a big portion of that money goes to supporting those people, the professors and students who are doing the research. Now I'm going to go into a little bit of the research areas that you will find at the University of Ottawa. So we divide, as I mentioned, we do have 9 different faculties. This is more of an administrative division, but we do break up our research priorities into 4 larger areas. that you will see on your screen. So you'll see we have e-society. This is a very large research topic that incorporates a lot of different people working in several different faculties, trying to address issues and questions that are associated with new technologies in society. What is the impact of technology on society? How can we use technology to the betterment of society? How can we address these very important issues? It also involves looking at some of the ethical questions, the legal questions behind technology. If we're developing self-driving cars, that is a great bit of technology, but what are the social implications? What will be the impact, the legal responsibility if a self-driving car hits a person? These are the types of questions that we do need to look at, and they're very large questions. So that would be that area of research at the University of Ottawa. Moving on, we do have Canada and the world. This is, again, a very large area. It does, as the name suggests, involve a lot of research on Canadian society specifically. That involves the bilingualism. Canada is a bilingual country, and in fact, the University of Ottawa is a bilingual university. You don't have to use both English and French. You can just use English if you want, or just French. It's your choice. But as part of that larger research area, we do look at some of the questions surrounding that. Part of this also looks at multiculturalism. This means that this comes from the fact that Canada has two legal systems. We have common law, which is based on the old British legal system, and we have civil law, which is based on the French legal system. And we have both of them in the same country. So we do look at how do different languages mix together in the same country or same society? How do multiple legal systems fit together in the same society? And how can we address important legal questions, public policy questions, governance issues, human rights, social justice? These are all the types of questions that would be raised in this area of research. Moving on, pardon me. We do have molecular and environmental sciences. University of Ottawa, we are increasingly doing more research in the areas of material sciences, looking to develop new technologies, nanotechnologies that can make materials better for the purpose they're designed for, or more environmentally friendly. Part of this involves looking at how plastics might biodegrade or not over time. And this larger area looks at all of the aspects surrounding environmental sustainability, whether this is looking at the geology, climate change, the impact of specific materials, or more the public policy aspect of it. What kind of social changes are needed to address environmental sustainability? And then lastly, we have health. This is a very large area of research done at the University of Ottawa. A lot of research is being done in the health sector at the university, ranging from all areas of health, ranging from the brain all down to the heart, muscular skeletal research. Very importantly, it's looking at legal issues surrounding health as well, policy issues pertaining to health, and also prosthetics. How can people develop new ways of supporting people with injuries or disabilities? So that gives you a little bit of an idea of very generally the research areas at the University of Ottawa. This is not to say that there are no other areas of research. This just gives you a very general feel for the research that we have at the University of Ottawa. But moving on, I will go very quickly through this. We have several research centers and institutes. These are not specifically faculties. These are essentially groupings of researchers focusing on specific issues. If you were to come as a student to the University of Ottawa, you would not necessarily do your full master's or PhD in one of these research centers or institutes. Your degree would be within the faculty. However, your research would largely be done in one of these centers or institutes, or it could be done. Not every bit of research will fit within an institute. We do have a couple affiliated institutions. Most of them are hospitals. There are a few hospitals around the city of Ottawa. They're very large, and the University of Ottawa is very closely connected with the hospitals. So I mentioned health is a major research area at the University of Ottawa, and that does not mean that we stay on campus. People, students, faculty members, they go out to these hospitals to work with real patients, figure out what are the diseases that people are inflicted with, what are the issues at hand, and what problems need to be solved. So at this point now, I'm going to give you I'm going to run through a couple specific areas of research just to give you an idea of a few more specific areas, a couple highlights. Again, this is not all the areas. This is just some areas of research to give you an idea. So photonics, this is a small but very strong area of research group at the University of Ottawa. You'll see there's only about 22 principal investigators within this area of research. So it's not huge, but it does attract a lot of funding, and unofficially, it is recognized as among the top 5 research centers in photonics in the world. So if photonics is of interest to you, there is a very strong offering at the University of Ottawa, specifically in this area of research. Artificial intelligence. This is rather multidisciplinary, as you might imagine. There are a lot of different factors that need to be considered when you're doing research in artificial intelligence. This involves the designing of the physical hardware. If you're designing a robot that actually does something, you need to design that physical hardware. Of course, there's the software aspect that is going to be controlling that hardware. And then, of course, there's all the other social and legal implications in that area of research. And this is combining all the different people working towards answering questions related to artificial intelligence. This is a very large area of research being done at the University of Ottawa. Additionally, the city of Ottawa, one of our large industries is the tech industry. So there are a lot of companies working in Ottawa outside of the university in areas related to artificial intelligence. So a lot of our students and professors will have the opportunity to go out and perhaps work with these companies in a paid fashion, or just to go out to these companies and incorporate some of the issues and questions into your research. So the environment is very conducive to doing research in artificial intelligence. Again, back to health. Health is a very large area of research. You'll see it does attract quite a bit of funding. I'm sorry, some of these numbers are a little bit old and perhaps not as up to date, but they do give you an idea of some of the research being done in health. This is the research that's being done at the university itself in various ways, but most of it is being done in real practicing hospitals. All right. Next, advanced materials. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier on. Again, this is a smaller group at the University of Ottawa. However, it is growing quite quickly. We're attracting more and more researchers in this area of research and attracting more and more funding each year. So this is a great opportunity if you are looking towards advanced materials, material sciences, whether that's designing the materials themselves or looking at larger issues pertaining to it, like the environmental impact of materials. This is a great area of research for that. I've mentioned a few times the tying in legal questions to a lot of our research areas, but particularly in the area of health. Health is not quite as a simple matter of simply curing someone, finding a solution to an illness, but quite often there are some very tricky questions about the legal aspects of it. When do people have the right to refuse or request certain treatments? What is an legally and ethically acceptable course of treatment? What type of research can and should be done ethically and legally? So these are some of the questions that are being raised in this field of research. And if you are interested in kind of the more social aspects of health, you will find a lot of opportunities and a lot of support at the University of Ottawa. Back to the social sciences, as I mentioned, we are located in the capital city of Canada, and we have a lot of affiliations with different centers and organizations that work in sociology, psychology, and particularly in policy. So if you're interested in public policy somewhat generally, if you're interested in policy towards the environment, if you're interested in international relations, there are a lot of different centers that you can be involved with, officially or unofficially. And these centers can provide a lot of research, a lot of support and resources to your research if you are working in these fields. I would like to highlight some of our technology platforms. This is just a quick snapshot of some of the equipment that we have on campus. This is not all of it. I promise you there are more than 5. But these are all the different resources that you would have access to as a researcher at the University of Ottawa. Just to give you an idea. And you can see that quite often specific technology platforms or focused labs, they are led by specific professors. And I will talk more about the professors and what that means to you in a moment. But it can be helpful to understand what kind of technology different professors and research groups have access to. At this point, I would like to quickly highlight 2 kind of partners that the University of Ottawa has in terms of research and international partnerships. At this point, these 2 partnerships are more to highlight the opportunities that researchers have to collaborate and to go beyond just Ottawa. So there's a lot of resources, a lot of information and the support that the University of Ottawa provides to professors, provides to students, but it's also very important that you have the opportunity to go abroad, meet people from other countries, different universities around the world, not just in Canada and North America. So in this case, we have the Max Planck Society in Germany. We do have a Max Planck Institute at the University of Ottawa. It's the Center for Extreme and Quantum Photonics. It was established only a few years ago, back in May 2015. But as I mentioned, photonics is a very strong research area at the University of Ottawa, and it's connected with this Max Planck Institute. And this is just an example of the University of Ottawa being quite strong in an area in itself, but becoming stronger by partnering with international partners. So you're not, by coming to the University of Ottawa to do research, you're by no means limiting yourself to one perspective or one approach to a research problem. And of course, we have partners around the world. It's not just China, Germany. We have several partners in China, as well as other institutes around the world. I will say, particularly in areas of health, and health sciences, we have a lot of connections with Chinese partners, looking at how we can collaborate to strengthen research and really dive into some of the tough questions related to health and research. All right, so I hope that gives you a bit of an idea of research at the University of Ottawa. At this point, I would like to touch on how you as a student might be able to come to the University of Ottawa to do some of this research, because there are a few different ways that you can do that. First, I think the classic way that a student might be doing research is through a PhD. That's the first line on the screen there. So as I'm sure you're all aware, a PhD is quite an intense program of study. It comes after a master's degree, and it usually takes about 5 years to complete a PhD. It is possible to complete it in 4 years, but very often it takes 5. Now, the idea is with a PhD, you'll take a few classes, but primarily you're focusing on research. You'll take a few classes in your first year, for example, but then the rest of your time, you're working with the professors in different research institutes around the campus and around the world to answer your research question, working on your research project. Very often, your research project will tie in and support a larger research project that is being led by your supervisor, by a professor, but it is still your research project. And so if you are interested in really going into a very specific project and really becoming an expert, it's the PhD is the way to do that. Before you do a PhD, there is the master's degree. I'm sure you're very familiar with this type of degree as well. Depending on the degree type, it would be about 1 to 2 years. And you do take some classes in all of our master's degrees, but you will also, just like the PhD, work with a professor, a supervisor, to answer a specific research question, to do a research project. Very quickly, I see a question has popped up asking if there's a doctor degree at the university. If you're asking about a doctoral degree to become a medical doctor, unfortunately, no, that is not an option, not at least for international students. There is a lot of restriction around that. So unfortunately, we do not offer degrees to become a medical doctor at the University of Ottawa. However, if you are interested in doing a master's degree or a PhD, doing research in medical sciences, then yes, you can come to do that type of work. Moving beyond the traditional degree programs, so your master's degree or your PhD, where at the end of your classes and the end of your research project, the University of Ottawa will give you a degree. It's the simple traditional model. However, that's not the only way that you can come to the University of Ottawa. If you are at the PhD level, a very common option and very interesting option is the co-tutelle option, or double PhD. The idea for this option is that you will work with a supervisor on a PhD here at the University of Ottawa, but you will also work with a research supervisor towards a PhD at a university somewhere else. The other university could be in Canada. It could be in your home country. It could be somewhere entirely different. It could be in France. But the idea is that you're working on one area of research, and you will be meeting the requirements for both universities. And at the end of that program, you would end up getting 2 PhDs. You would get 1 PhD from the University of Ottawa, and you would get 1 PhD from the other university. And the idea here is that well, you get 2 PhDs, which is pretty nice, but you have really built this collaboration. You've had access and you've done a lot of in-depth, really careful work in 2 different universities. You've really built on the resources at the 2 different institutions. All right, so there's a few questions here. I'm going to get to some of those questions in a moment. But I will quickly finish up on this page here. First of all, there's the sandwich PhD and the visiting master's students options. So if you are currently taking a master's degree at a university somewhere else, in your home country or in another country, or if you're doing a PhD at another university, you can still come to the University of Ottawa to do some research. The idea is that you are working on your research project back at the other university, maybe your home university, and then you come to the University of Ottawa for a short stay. You could come at the PhD level for up to 24 months, that's 2 years, or at the master's level, 12 months, it's 1 year. So you can come do a short stay. It could be shorter than this, it could be only 3 months. But the idea is you work with one of the University of Ottawa researchers to support your main research project back at your home university. The nice thing about this is that you do not pay any tuition for a visiting student stay. So if you want to come do a short research stay at the University of Ottawa, you can, and you would not pay tuition. However, you do not receive a degree from the University of Ottawa. So there is some different considerations in these different options. So it's a little bit confusing, but I hope not too much. All right, moving on here. So any of the research options you want to do, whether you want to come for a full degree, a master's degree or a PhD, or if you want to come for a short research stay, you will need a supervisor. This is a University of Ottawa professor who is an expert in your area of research, and your supervisor will support you. They will guide you and give you advice and information on how to best proceed with your research. In most cases, you need your supervisor first. Before you do your application, before you can be admitted, you need a supervisor. There's a couple exceptions. Specifically, if you are doing a master's degree in social sciences, arts, business, law, kind of the humanities areas, in that case, you do not need a supervisor in advance. So that's a bit of a special situation. But all PhDs, all short research stays, and all master's degrees in the natural sciences, medicine, engineering, the physical sciences, those programs need a supervisor. So in order to find a supervisor, it's a bit like finding a job. You need to do your research, and you will need to contact professors and ask them, can they accept you as a student? So I have a couple tips here, I'll go over very quickly. My first tip is take your time. This is not a process that gets done immediately in one afternoon. You want to really take your time to do your research and really prepare your communication with possible supervisors. You should write a research statement. You want to really carefully and clearly explain what you want to research. Why do you want to work with that professor? Really explain what's the logic in your idea. If you have previously studied law, but suddenly want to study environmental sciences, that could be an option, but you need to explain your path, explain the logic on why you're kind of changing your field somewhat, and really explain why you think that that individual professor would be suitable and the best choice to supervise you and guide you and help you in your research project. When you do contact a professor, I recommend keep your email short and clear. And if you can, include your CV and any unofficial transcripts or language test scores that you might have. This will help the professor get an idea of who you are and what you're capable of, and your research statement. Make sure you include your very clear, logical research statement. If you are applying for a scholarship in your country, some countries have large scholarship programs. If you are applying for one of those scholarships, make sure you mention this right away. That will grab professors' attention. It's not a requirement, but it can help you stand out. It is okay to contact more than one professor at the same time. It's all right. The professors know that it's not an automatic thing, and they understand that you might have to contact 2 or 3. However, make sure you send an individual email to each professor and really customize your email. So this comes back to the idea that you want to take your time to write to the professors. Really explain to each professor why they are unique and why their specific area of research is a little bit different than the others and how it's specifically of interest to you. And finally, some professors will say no, and that's okay. Please don't worry. Professors say no for many different reasons. Sometimes it just maybe your research interest isn't quite right. It could be that they're just too busy. They have too many students already. They can't take new students. That's normal. So please don't worry too much about that. Sometimes it may be that they're just simply, they don't think that your grades are high enough, and that may be the case. But just keep that in mind, that there are a lot of factors that professors will keep in mind. So this is my last slide right here, and has a bit of information. First of all, start with the last item. That's my name right there, Kyle Jorgensen Lane. That's me, and I work at the International Office of the University of Ottawa. If you have any questions, if you would like copies of these slides, if you don't understand something and would like clarification, you can write to me at that email address, sponsoredstudents@uottawa.ca. If you are interested in applying for a PhD or master's degree, I do advise you to contact individual faculties, since admissions are processed by each faculty. And the processes could be slightly different, but you can get a lot of good guidance and the contact information at grad.uottawa.ca. And finally, if you are interested in coming for a short research stay, you can go to our Center for Research Opportunities. This will give you a little bit of information describing how you can come to the University of Ottawa for anywhere between 1 month up to 1 or 2 years, depending on the type of program that you're currently in. And you can contact this program at vsr@uottawa.ca. That stands for Visiting Student Researcher, vsr@uottawa.ca. Now I'm going to go back and try and answer some of your questions. First of all, how long does it take to get a reply on admissions? This is a very good question, and I don't have a precise answer. The time it takes will depend on the faculty, will depend on the program, and it depends on the time of year. Generally, if you apply very, very early, for example, if you submit an application in October or November of, for example, this past November or October, November 2018, in order to start in fall 2019, you'll probably start to hear responses around March. if you submit your application a little bit late, you may not hear responses till much later. Essentially, responses will keep coming out until the program is full. And it is done on a competitive basis. So certainly if you have a very strong application, it means that they will likely respond to you more quickly and admit you right away. Or I shouldn't say right away. Generally, it's rare that admissions would come out really before March. March and April is when most admission responses would come out. But some of them may not come until even June. In terms of financial aid, scholarships, and bursaries, there are some options available. First of all, some of your countries may have large scholarship programs, and I definitely recommend that you consider those options. I know for various reasons, students sometimes don't wish to because of the conditions. However, those scholarships can often be the largest available. From the University of Ottawa, we don't offer very many large scholarships. There are a few admission scholarships that we provide on a very competitive basis, and they are partial. This means that when you submit an application for a master's degree or a PhD, we will consider you for admissions and for a scholarship at the same time. So when you get your admissions decision, you will be told if you have a scholarship or not. We do offer a couple automatic admission scholarships. At the master's level, it ends up being about 2,400 Canadian dollars per year, out of a total cost of about 25,000 Canadian dollars. So it's a small partial scholarship, but it is automatic that all master's students would end up receiving. Depending on the type of program, you may end up receiving it for 2 years. At the PhD level, we do have a new automatic scholarship for international PhD students. It's a partial scholarship, and it covers very approximately 50% of international tuition. And it covers essentially the difference between the international tuition and the domestic tuition. So what this means is that now all PhD students, international students, pay the same as a Canadian PhD student. So it's kind of equalizing it out for all students. However, it is, as I mentioned, a partial scholarship. It's not going to cover all of your fees and living expenses. You need to look into other options. And I do suggest that sometimes a research supervisor can provide guidance and suggestions. In some cases, they might even have funding that they can provide to you to support you as well, but only in some cases. But they may have advice on other scholarships and sources of funding you could apply for in their field. In terms of the question about do you need to find a supervisor, in most cases, yes. As I mentioned, it's only master's degrees in social sciences, arts, humanities, where you do not need a supervisor to apply. If you're doing engineering, physics, science, biology, medicine, any of those types of master's degrees, or any PhD, then yes, you must find a supervisor in order to apply. If you do submit your application without a supervisor, you will not be admitted until you associate a supervisor with your application. So in some cases, you can submit some documents, but you won't be admitted without that supervisor. Let's see. Yes, so to refer back to the idea of finding a supervisor, in certain cases, in certain master's programs like the arts and humanities, you will find one eventually. So if you are admitted, then you arrive in Ottawa, then you will start speaking to professors and finding a supervisor. But again, that's only for master's degrees in arts, social sciences, humanities, those types of fields. In terms of finding researchers themselves, it's a little bit of a treasure hunt. Like I said, it's a little bit like finding a job. So it does require that you do some research. Professors do have their names and contact information and profiles on the University of Ottawa website. You can go on, you can search if you're interested in engineering, for example. You can go to the University of Ottawa Faculty of Engineering and search for the different faculty members, and you can find out a little bit about what are their research areas and then also their email address. And so you can start contacting them that way. I believe that on the website for the visiting student researchers, the middle one, on that website, and I believe even on the graduate website, grad.uottawa.ca, I believe that there are some links that can point you in the right direction to help you in your search for specific professors who might be in your area of work. Specifically, question about Master of Computer Science. This one's a bit of a tricky question. There is a Master of Computer Science, and then there's a Master of Applied Science in Computer Science. I know that's a little bit tricky. If you are doing a research project, which would be the Master of Applied Science in Computer Science, then yes, you do need a supervisor. But if you're doing just the Master of Computer Science, then it's not a research program, and therefore you do not need a supervisor. But I think that's from Diego. If you would like me to clarify and explain that better, please just send me an email, and I can kind of make sure that we're talking about the right type of program here. Question from Mark asking, how do I know if the professor is accepting students? Unfortunately, there's no easy way to know this. It really is a matter of figuring out if it's a suitable match and contacting them and asking them, are you accepting students? It's like finding a job, as I mentioned, and sometimes people are not hiring. There are no jobs available, or in these cases, there are no student research positions available. But it is a matter of you have to ask to know. I'm afraid there's no quick, easy way around that, as much as I wish there was. All right. Master in music, need a supervisor. You will need a supervisor eventually, but not in advance. Question about CONACYT. Yes, through CALDO, the University of Ottawa does have an agreement with CONACYT. For those of you from Mexico, you may know that there's some uncertainty about what's going on with the CONACYT program. We're not certain exactly what types of scholarships will be available from CONACYT, but we're very happy to work with you to try and support you in those applications. And more generally, if you're in another country with a funding agency, a government agency that provides scholarships, you're very welcome to write to me at sponsoredstudents@uottawa.ca to figure out if we have any special agreements or if there's any way that I can help your application for that scholarship. Funding for a Master of Science in Chemical Engineering. Again, this is similar to generally for the master's programs. We have the automatic scholarship that's a small partial one for master's degrees. I strongly suggest that you look into scholarship options in your country, just because very likely that will be the largest scholarship that will be available to you. And then there are a few other options within Canada, generally very competitive, but I would generally suggest that you speak with your research supervisor on advice on what other scholarship options might be available. All right, next question. Is the university still receiving students with Science Without Borders from Brazil at the PhD level? Yes, I know that the program sometimes has different names, but essentially we do have an agreement, again, through Caldo, with Capus and with CMPQ in Brazil, and we are, and if they are providing scholarships at the PhD level, we are able to receive them, and I'm very happy to help support your application if there's any extra documentation that I might be able to provide. All right, moving on. Yes. Yes. Claudia, kind of not a question, but adds a little comment. Generally, for CONACYT and many other scholarship organizations in, I think, most countries, they will require an acceptance letter before you can receive your scholarship. So this means that the first step is really applying for admission. Apply early. I very strongly recommend apply as early as you can. Generally, start your preparation about 1 year in advance if you're coming for a full degree, because you will need an acceptance letter from the University of Ottawa first in order for you to complete your scholarship application from CONACYT or Capus or one of the other organizations that might be in your country. Moving further down, do I need to have research experience? For the master's level, no. In principle, no. The idea is that some students we know at the bachelor's level, the undergraduate level, you might have some research experience, which is certainly helpful, but it is not required for admissions to a master's degree, a research-based master's degree. However, if you are looking to apply for a PhD, you must have research experience. You must have a research-based master's degree in order to be admitted to a PhD. So if you did a professional master's degree, like say an MBA, for example, you cannot continue on to a PhD after that type of master's degree. You need the research experience for a PhD program. The master's admissions, it's helpful, any research experience, but it is not required. Really showing that you're a good student will be the core thing that's most important for a master's degree admission. Is there any way to contact students currently at the University of Ottawa from Peru or any of your countries? Yes and no. There are a lot of privacy laws in Canada, which means that we can't put you directly in contact just without permission, which limits kind of what we can do in terms of direct contact. However, we do have a number of student mentors, and if you do write to them, they can help answer some of your questions. They are often from different regions. I don't believe we have a Peruvian mentor specifically, but we do have mentors from, say, Latin America, who might be able to give at least some of their perspectives coming from that region of the world and what it's like to come to Canada, perhaps moving to a much colder environment than you might be used to. So we do have those types of facilities, but unfortunately, because of privacy rules, I can't just give you direct contact information for students who are currently here. A question about the experience at the university. So as I mentioned, the University of Ottawa, we are located in the capital city, in the city of Ottawa in Canada, and we are located right downtown. In fact, you can see the National Parliament of Canada from campus, and you can walk there in about 10 minutes. And really, you can get around the city quite well. The city of Ottawa is about 1 million people, so it's big enough. You'll find most shops that you're looking for. You can get the things you need and want. With some exceptions, you may find it difficult to find really specific things from your home country, but generally you will find that you can find what you need. However, it's not giant, which is nice, which means that traffic generally goes pretty well. You can move around. It's very safe. And if you live near the campus, in theory, you could really walk everywhere you need to. That being said, there is a pretty good transportation system. We're just finishing building a new train line, light train line in the city, and there's lots of buses that can help you get around the city. And all students automatically have a transit pass included with their tuition fees, which means that all students get unlimited access to the entire public transit system. Overall, in terms of climate, Ottawa is very cold in the winter, as you might imagine, and it's very hot in the summer. To give you an idea of the very big extremes we have, in the summer, you could get up to about 35 degrees Celsius. So it's very hot in the summer, but in the winter, it gets down to about minus 30 degrees Celsius. So it can be very, very cold. However, if you're not accustomed to the cold, please don't worry. We are here to prepare you. We have students who come from very hot climates all the time, and we do offer orientation and support services to make sure students know where to find appropriate clothing. They know how to get by in the winter. And I promise you won't die in the cold. We'll take care of you. In terms of families, yes, families can come. The university there are a few different daycares near the campus. However, there's no official University of Ottawa daycare. So it isn't, they're private, and you would have to pay a fee to have your child in daycare. That being said, if you come as a student with a study permit, your children who are under the age of 18 years old, they have access to the regular public education system in Canada for free. So that starts at around age 5. So if your child is between the age of 5 and 18, they would have access for free to the regular schools in Canada, just like the Canadian students. And they would have to go to class and study in English or in French, but that is an option, and it's available. I have a question here asking about what grades are more important. In principle, they are all very important. However, when the faculties are considering an application for admission, the later years are the most important. So if you're applying for a PhD and you had excellent grades in your bachelor's degree, but you didn't do so well in your master's degree, it's very possible you would not be admitted. However, if you had low grades in your bachelor's degree, but very good grades in your master's degree, that would be very good. That would look favorable. However, the ideal situation is to have good grades across your studies at the bachelor's level and your master's level. But really, near the end of your most recent studies, that's the most important, generally. I have a question here. Someone has done part of their undergrad program at uOttawa. That's great to hear. It could be helpful. I won't say officially or that it automatically would be beneficial, but having that experience at the University of Ottawa, it does show any potential supervisor that you already kind of know what to expect, that you have this experience. And in terms of finding a supervisor, I think that having experience already in Ottawa or at the University of Ottawa specifically could be a benefit. But I can't say it's going to be automatically beneficial in every case, but it's not going to hurt by any means. Medical insurance, yes. Medical insurance, all international students are subscribed to the university health insurance plan. This is mandatory. every international student must subscribe. The cost is 52 Canadian dollars per month, and it gives you the same access to the health system as a Canadian student. So if you break your leg or if you get sick, you can go to the clinic, you can go to the hospital in an emergency, and you can get medical coverage, and you don't have to pay thousands of dollars. Generally speaking, in Canada, any medical treatment is free, it's covered, but you might have to pay for certain medications. In terms of your family who might be coming, they would be added at the same cost to your plan, up to a maximum of 3 people. Or the cost, sorry, a bit confusing, but essentially if you are coming by yourself for the whole year, for 12 months, you will pay $624 Canadian dollars. That will give you full coverage for you. If you come with your wife or your husband, you would add another $624, and it would cover your wife or husband. They would get the same coverage just like you, just like the Canadian students. If you had one child, you would add, again, $624. However, if you have 2 children or more, it stops. They are covered, but there's no more additional cost. So essentially, if you come with a family of 5 people in total, it's the same cost as a family of 3. So 3 or more is all the same cost. I hope that clarifies that a little bit. If you do have questions, please do email me at sponsoredstudents@uottawa.ca. I know some of this can be a bit confusing there. So I believe that that is about an hour, and I thank you very, very much for all of your time. I will mention that University of Ottawa is a member of CALDO, the consortium, and we do work to be present in many of your countries. Not every country and every city, of course, but we will be visiting a few countries this coming April. I believe there is talk about visiting possibly Chile, Paraguay, Brazil, and Mexico. That's just this coming up in the next near future, but we'll be trying to see what other places we could visit at other times during the year. But again, if you have questions or anything, you're very welcome to contact CALDO, the consortium. That was Maria, who was first speaking at the beginning. She can definitely point you in the right direction if you have questions. If you have questions specifically for me at the University of Ottawa, you're very welcome to contact me at sponsoredstudents@uottawa.ca. And I believe Maria had posted in the chat as a little clarification that this webinar is eventually going to be posted on YouTube if you want to listen to it again. I know some of the things I was saying might have been a little bit confusing, or maybe I spoke a little bit fast. So hopefully the YouTube video could be helpful. And again, any uncertainties you have about any of this, please send me an email. And if I don't have the answer, I can point you in the right direction. So again, my name is Kyle, and you can reach me at sponsoredstudents@uottawa.ca. So once again, thank you very, very much.